Everything smelled like smoke and sap. I was barefoot in wet gravel, watching my little A-frame peel open like an orange, and the only thing keeping me from running into it was a firefighter's glove. Pressing me back, a red gas can lay crumpled by the mailbox with a half-melted marina sticker clinging to it. The porch steps folded in like a bad card trick. The rocking chair my mom gave me popped and fell into glowing pieces, and before the sun even cleared the pines, I had to put on a suit that still smelled like campfire and walk into Courtroom 3C like none of it happened. Front row of the jury pool, blue dress pearls, catching the light, calm little smile like she was at brunch. Beverly Crane, president of the White Otter Shores Association, and when our eyes met, she gave me that slow blink that says I dare you. Name's Jordan Miles, 36 Assistant District Attorney for Iron Hollow County, Michigan. On weekdays, I argue law. On weekends, I drive out to White Otter Lake to drink quiet coffee on a crooked dock. You know what I mean? That cabin was the first promise I ever kept to myself. Bought it from a retired mechanic who kept his wrenches cleaner than a dentist's tools. And the day I signed those papers, something clicked inside me like a key finally turning. The first month I painted the rails, the second I fixed the dock. The third, I hosted a little fish fry on the porch because joy deserves company. And that's when the letters started to arrive. Pale green envelopes with a sailboat logo telling me my mailbox wasn't on the approved pallet, that my 2 decorative nets were unsightly, that my dock extended 1 foot beyond aesthetic harmony, which is not a measurement, but apparently it can cost you $200. I kept it polite, measured. Twice took photos, paid 1 ticket because work was busy. And when the fines kept coming, I went to the meeting. Small carpeted room, folding tables poster that said, "Keep White Otter beautiful." And there sat Beverly with a tiny gavel that really wanted to be a big gavel. Bob haircut, sharp enough to slice a tomato silver bracelet with a little compass charm. Dock variance for Mr. Miles, she said, like she was reading the weather does not meet the aesthetic of the community. I stood, said the written rules. Allow 20 feet, and mine is exactly 20. She blinked, slow tapped a page labeled Community Harmony. Language smiled without teeth and carried the motion like my words were crumbs on a tablecloth. That night, I sat on the porch instead of slamming a door miss. Darnell from up the road walked by with her terrier and told me not to let a committee steal my Saturdays, so I built a tiny free library by the road, and a teenager named Noah asked how I got the wood level, said he wanted to be a firefighter so he could show up on people's worst day. And I told him that was the best reason I'd heard in a long time. The harassment didn't quit rope on my kayak. Cut clean like a barber line, a note under a rock on my step, and careful handwriting on nice paper. Some people don't fit our neighborhood no matter how much they paint. And I logged every inch of it, dated, photographed, filed with Sheriff Lang, who said it's hard to prove a cut rope, but he'd cruise by. I hosted another porch night anyway. Noah's dad brought legendary coleslaw. Folks laughed, and a car rolled slow with the windows down. The driver's wrist flashed a silver compass charm in the porch light. It didn't stop, it just circled like a shark that had read the bylaws. And at 12:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. The table porch cam. Alert, hood pulled tight. Gloves, red gas can. Tilted liquid, splashing a second figure holding position at the edge of my yard, in a pale hotel blue robe. The hooded one, glancing up just long enough for that same little compass charm to wink at the lens. Flick, flick, the lighter caught a tiny star in the dark. And by the time I had shoes on, the night was a mouthful of heat. Next morning, I stood behind fire tape, watching ash drift like tired snow. The chief bagged that half-melted sticker. Evidence labels looked too clean for a night that dirty. And a few hours later, I was in court because trials don't care about your grief. During a break, Beverly floated into the hallway, lavender and confidence, not close enough to touch, close enough to cut, and said soft as a secret. Terrible thing about that little shack, counselor. Some places just aren't a fit. I swallowed the heat and said, truth has a way of finding light. And for half a heartbeat, her smile trembled. Then she turned toward the water fountain like she owned it. That week, the seesaw got violent. Insurance adjuster counting my memories like Beans Anonymous. Called to the sheriff, claiming I was planning to retaliate courthouse flyer, stapled crooked. Asking, do you trust this man with my staff photo pulled off the county website and nails scattered across my driveway? 73 of them rust first heads up like a field of teeth. I swept them carefully into a bag, counted out loud, because counting felt like control, handed the bag to Lang, and tried to keep my voice where I could stand it. Then came the midpoint that changed everything. Neighbor across the water handed over security footage from the same night, wider angle, cleaner light-hooded figure stepping into the porch glowed just long enough for the camera to catch a clear face, and forensics pulled a partial print from the gas can that matched a name we both knew. Lang leaned across his desk and said, we're preparing a warrant, then lowered his voice. People who think they own the map get reckless when you tell them there are borders. Be careful. Yeah, that happened. He wasn't wrong. The association rushed an emergency meeting about harmony and safety soon packed, and tight, fewer smiles pointed at the front table. Ms. Darnell stood with her hands shaking and said, our neighbor's house burned nails. Showed up in his drive, if we won't say it here. Then what is this room even for? And a man in a ball cap said he'd seen Beverly's SUV looping past my place after midnight. Beverly banged that tiny gavel like it owed her rent, out of order, but the spell had cracked. 2 nights later, a brick came through my living room window, a scrap of paper taped around it reading, next time it's you. Deputies swept glass and shook their heads, and I sat on my couch with a mug I didn't drink from, and decided that kindness didn't mean silence, not today. The counterweight showed up on my porch with toolboxes and plywood neighbors, replacing my window like they were patching a boat before a storm. Noah measuring with his tongue poking out Ms. Darnell sweeping in practiced arcs. And when they finished, Noah said, she can break stuff, but we can fix stuff, right? That's exactly how people beat bullies, I said, and meant it more than he knew. Lang called that weekend. Eyes on her house jewelry sold second car. Listed boxes packed, looks like she's building a runway. And at 2 a.m, her sedan idled outside my place. She rolled the window down and stared across the street like she was measuring me for a box. Lifted her hand, pointed a finger like a gun, and clicked an imaginary trigger, then peeled off into the night. The arrest came fast and ugly. She clipped a pole 2 blocks away. Airbags out. Pearls snapped deputies steady and quiet, while she twisted like a fish that hadn't learned it was already on the dock. This is my community, she screamed. He doesn't belong. He never belonged. And the sheriff gave me the smallest nod. Over the top of the car door, it's done. We have enough to hold her. Arraignment day. She wore orange instead of blue, and the lighting was not kind. Her lawyer had a voice like butter and tried to spread it over everything. My client is a respected volunteer. This is a smear. Mr. Miles has a history of conflict, and he's manufacturing grievances to paint himself a victim. And for a second, I felt the floor tilt, because polished lies can make good people wobble. Then the rebuttal stacked the truth back where it belonged. The partial print that matched the neighbor's footage, that put her face in my porch light, the nails, the flyer, the brick, and the note. Ms. Darnell's testimony about midnight loops, and Sheriff Lang describing the arrest. Plus the thing I didn't know, until he said it under oath, that in the squad car, she muttered she should have made sure the fire finished the job. When it was my turn, I held the rail so my hands wouldn't float, and said I didn't buy that place to fight. I bought it to breathe. I followed rules, even when they moved like a mirage. I kept receipts. I kept peace where I could. And my mother always said the truth. You whisper to yourself. When no one's around is the truth. You can hold up when everyone is watching. Fire can burn a roof. Lies can chew on your name. But stubborn kindness, the kind that keeps showing up, it lives through smoke. The verdict came down guilty on arson, harassment, criminal threats. And outside the courthouse, reporters asked if I thought race was a factor, if HOAs help more than they hurt, if I had a message for the community. And I looked at the faces that mattered instead. Noah holding a little wooden cabin he'd carved Ms. Darnell, with her kind hands. The ball cap guy who finally spoke into a microphone, louder than a whisper, and said control dressed like community is not community's rules. Should help us live next to each other, not over each other, and for anyone being worn down by 1,000 paper cuts, keep your receipts and keep your voice steady, because truth is slow, but it shows up. I'm rebuilding board by board. The free library went up first because the kids were standing there with comic books like they were late for class. Noah painted a tiny compass on the side so I'd never lose my way back. Funny thing is, I never did. And here's where I hand the mic to you. Where's the line between standards and control in your world? Have you seen power hide behind a smile and a clipboard? Do HOAs actually protect communities, or just the people who hold the gavel? What's fair? What's fear? What have you lived through? Drop your take in the comments. Defend it. Argue it. Tell me what I got right or wrong, and tell me where you're watching from. Because justice shouldn't just show up in a courtroom. It should show up on porches and meetings, in the way we treat the neighbor who painted their mailbox the wrong kind of green.